Hello and welcome back to Rongmar. In today's geography lesson, we're going to be learning a little bit more about the people of the rainforest. Our goal for today is to compare the lives of the rainforest tribes to our lives here. Over the last little while, we've been taking a deep look at the rainforest. We've learned a lot. We've learned where they are in the world. We've learned about the delicious foods that come from the rainforest. We've also learned about the terrifying creatures that live in the rainforest. When you picture the rainforest from these lessons, you probably picture a place full of trees and wildlife and all sorts of weird and wonderful creatures. But there's another part of the rainforest that we never talked about yet, and that is the people who live there. We're not talking about just one or two people living in the rainforests. There are millions of people living in the rainforests of our world. These tribal people live in a traditional way of life that's really quite different from the life that we live here in the city. Their way of life has been pretty unchanged for hundreds of years. A lot of these tribes live in very remote, far away parts of the rainforest, nowhere near big cities or towns. In fact, often, there's nobody else around at all. You can imagine all the ways that their lives are so different from ours. Think of the houses that they might live in. Think of the clothes that they might wear. The food that they would eat. And the things that they would do for fun. There are also plenty of things that are the same about their life. Can you pause the video and think of one thing that's going to be very different and one thing that's going to be similar to your life here? Pause the video and give it a try. Today we're going to head back into the Amazon to meet a tribe of people who were very much unknown to the rest of the world until very recently. Let's go meet the Yanomami tribe of the Amazon. The Yanomami tribe is one of the largest tribes of people who live in the Amazon rainforest. They live deep in the rainforest, far away from any modern cities or towns. In fact, the rest of the world didn't even know that they existed until the 1960s. The Yanomami tribe had been living completely isolated, away from the rest of the modern world. And they continued to live a life in a very traditional way. What do you imagine the Yanomami villages to look like? Pause the video and draw a quick little sketch of what you think their houses would look like. Well, the Yanomami live in small villages in the rainforest. Each family has got a shibono, which is a large hut with a space in the middle. The whole family lives there. The shibonos are made in clear patches of ground in the rainforest. They're made out of palm leaves and wood from the area around. And they can be pretty long as 100 meters. Kind of like a rainforest mansion. These houses, though, are not forever. Every few years, they break down the shibono and build a brand new one out of new material. That's quite different to how we build houses we live. Can you imagine if every few years you had to knock down your home and rebuild it again from just the stuff you can gather? It would be very difficult to do that in Dublin City. What about the food that the Yanomami eat? What kind of things do you think they would be eating in the rainforest? Pause the video and write down 2 foods you think they might eat. Well, as you can imagine, in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, there is no McDonald's, there is no KFC, and there is no Tesco. The Yanomami tribe have to get all of their food from hunting, fishing, and growing crops. The men clear sections of the jungle so that the women can plant fruit and vegetables, like bananas and sweet potatoes. They also gather fruit and berry from the rainforest. The men have the job of hunting animals. and the animals they eat might surprise you. They hunt things like monkeys, sloths, birds, and pumas, as well as fish. They use poison darts to kill their prey. We heard about these poison darts before in a science lesson. Can you remember where they get the poison from? Pause the video and write down the answer. Well, if you remember from the science lesson the other day, these poison darts are made using the poison taken from the poison dart frog. The hunters use bow and arrows to hunt their prey, but they also some of them use a special piece of equipment called a blowpipe. This is a hollow tube that the dart is placed in, and you blow really hard on one end to shoot the dart out. You have to be careful though. If you swallow the poison dart, you are in big trouble because there's no hospitals in the rainforest. What about the children in the village though? What do you think they do all day? Do they go to school like you? Or do they do something different? Pause the video and write down what you think they might do. Well, the boys and the girls in the village live two very different lives. The boys learn to hunt from a young age, so that when they grow up, they'll be able to provide for their family. Sometimes they go out with the men, for days on end, learning how to hunt and track animals. The girls stay at home with their mothers, until they get married and learn to gather and prepare food. They also look for vines that can be woven into baskets and other tools. But what do the Yanomami tribes do for fun? Do they play sports like football? Do they jump onto their PlayStations and play some Fortnite? Pause the video and write down what you think they might do for fun. Well, of course, there's no Xboxes or PlayStations out in the rainforest, so the Yanomami tribes find a different way of having fun. They celebrate special events with massive feasts. They invite all the neighbouring villages to join in, and they have lots of food, music, and plenty of dancing. They decorate their bodies with paint, and they decorate their faces by placing small sticks through their nose and chin, like in the picture on the side. The Yanomami tribe are only one group of people who live in the rainforest. There are lots of other tribes like the Yanomami who live in all of our other rainforests. Have a look at the pictures on the next few slides. What can you learn about the lives of the traditional tribal people from the pictures that you're seeing? Let's have a look at the first one. In this picture, we can see the type of housing that the people in the rainforest build. You can see the materials that they use, and you can see what's around them. Pause the video and write down one thing that's the same and one thing that's different between this home and your home. Let's look at another picture. Take a look at this tribal man relaxing in his bedroom with his pets. Pause the video and write down one thing that's the same and one thing that's different between relaxing in your bedroom in the rainforest and relaxing in the bedroom in your home. Take a look at another picture. Here's the two gentlemen out for the day, probably travelling to somewhere a little bit far away, maybe public transport. Pause the video and write down one thing that's the same and one thing that's different about travelling in the rainforest and travelling places in hometown. Let's have a look at one more picture. Here we can see a tribal man going out to get the dinner. You can see he has to hunt for his dinner. Pause the video and write down one thing that's the same and one thing that's different about getting dinner in the rainforest and getting dinner in your hometown. There are of course some things that are similar between the lives of the tribal people of the rainforest and our lives here in the city. But if we're being honest, there's far more differences. These people live a life that is nearly trapped in time 100 years ago. They have no TikTok, they have no YouTube, they have no interest in any of these things. There are some tribes still in the world that have never, ever had contact with the outside world. That means they've never met anybody who wasn't from their very remote village. There's one tribe in particular, the Sentinelese tribe of the North Sentinel Islands in the Indian Ocean, and they have never, ever had contact with anybody from anywhere else except for that island. In fact, any time that the outside world has tried to contact them, they have not been too welcoming. I don't know about you, but I think let's leave them alone. They seem to be doing pretty well for themselves without us. Our Walt for today's lesson was to compare the lives of the Rainforest tribes to our lives. When you're ready, you can try the practice activities down below. That's all we have time for today. Until next time, take care.